Welcome to the Rainmaker Multiplier on Demand, a podcast for leading financial professionals, or rainmakers, and their teams that offer support for securing a successful future. From marketing help to staffing structure, listen and subscribe for actionable insights from advisors and skilled professionals alike.
Good morning, everyone. When I think about cross-selling and on our topic today, Unified Advisor Strategies, really the holy grail of new business acquisition is not the newest seminar strategy or social media post. It's the ability to meet with your existing clients, your existing customers, and steadily grow your revenue through offering them new solutions or additional solutions. In the common parlance, it's called growing the share of wallet with that customer. Now, there's been numerous studies that show as you grow the share of wallet, you increase client retention, you increase client satisfaction. So why doesn't everyone do it? Why are those of you joining us today? Why aren't you you're meeting with your clients all the time, but why isn't that happening for you? And the reason is just like everything else, especially as we train it here at C2P, is that you need both a process and a commitment to integrating cross-selling into your practice. In addition, especially if you have multiple advisors, if you run what we call an ensemble practice, you need a unified advisor strategy to keep everyone moving together on the same page. The bottom line is you might be sitting on a gold mine of opportunity right now today to better help your clients, increase client loyalty, and put more revenue into your business. In the next 28 minutes, that's what we're going to try to give you. We're going to try to give you the basics of cross-selling, talk about some of the tools and resources that you have access to, and how you can incorporate a unified advisor process into your business. Both of our guest baristas today hail from JL Smith. I don't need to really introduce who they are, but I will certainly introduce them as individuals. So I'm going to start with you, Rob. Rob Lasivita is the Chief Operating Officer at JL Smith. Now, many of you might recognize Rob from our training events, such as the Teamwork Movement. And as Chief Operating Officer, Rob has incorporated and taught the JLS team the strategies and processes that we'll discuss today. More importantly, because of his operational excellence at JL Smith, they are on pace this year to bring in over 150 million of new client assets. That's just in 2024. Joining Rob is Chad Weigel, who is a senior wealth manager at JL Smith. Now, Chad, it's been fantastic to watch as he has risen steadily through the ranks at JL Smith, using many of the cross-selling strategies we're going to talk about and following the Unified Advisor process. He is a mentor on the Mentor Connect platform, and as a lead advisor now at JL Smith, he is currently sitting at number 9 on our leaderboard. This is as of August, and just a quick reminder, our leaderboard wraps up here in just a few days for September. But Chad has over 19 million in new client assets since September of last year. Gentlemen, thank you both so much for joining us. Rob, I'd like to start with a quick question for you. Again, as everyone knows, this is open forum. So as you have questions, put them in chat, raise your hand, and we'll be happy to address them. Rob, as all of the advisors follow the bucket plan strategy as part of their planning process, how do you still keep everyone on the same page at JL Smith internally? And why is it so important, especially as your team grows, to make sure you're keeping everyone kind of working in the same direction?
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. Appreciate the introduction. And just really quick to brag about Chad here for a moment before I answer the question. He did all of that by taking the month of July off. So he reached 10 years of employment here. He went on a sabbatical, was out a month, and still did those numbers. So nice job, Chad. We're certainly very proud of you. To answer your question about why this is so important, it's important to have a proven process, right? And of course, we're running the bucket plan. But I think primarily why that's important is it helps with the scalability of the business, right? You can't scale if everyone is doing something different. So it helps not only with organic growth, with everybody on the same team pulling in the same direction, using all of the same tools and processes, but also helps with if anybody is perhaps in the kind of mergers and acquisitions space, right? And bringing on a new organization into theirs. If they plug right into a proven process where the current people on that team are all doing everything the exact same way, you can help scale from there as well. Certainly important from the scalability. Also, we have this notion of within an organization of an ensemble practice, right? We let our clients know that they are serviced by a team. It's one of our 3 uniques that we like to convey to our clients. We've got our first chair advisors, second chair advisors, our pair planners, our client service team, our directors of first impression, right? Those are the folks who sit at front desk and answer the phone. Everyone pulling in the same direction regarding that same proven process helps with the scalability and our client service and client retention.
And Chad, obviously, you're part of this process, right? Day in, day out, working with all of the people that Rob just mentioned. How do you think JL Smith has been successful in utilizing all the different levels that Rob just talked about? Obviously, you have you sitting as a lead advisor. You typically have a chair two advisor. You have paraplanners. You have CSAs. You have a lot of people supporting the advisory process. What makes JL Smith successful at that?
Yeah, I would say one of the things we do is we do follow EOS. Yes, I know that's really structured for leadership, but we also tier that down to advisors as well as back office staff. So we are running weekly meetings on a regular basis to kind of review different changes and updates within strategies, things like that. We also on those meetings carry in training ideas. We'll bring in guests to those meetings. We run them weekly on Mondays. They're about an hour and a half. We'll have guest speakers. We'll also have advisors training on different things so that newer advisors can see how to implement different processes and strategies. So really, to keep everyone on the same page, to keep people unified, it is important that your back office is meeting, that your front office is meeting, that the leadership team that is running the company is meeting. That way, everything gets passed down. Everyone knows what's going on. You're able to work with those different areas, correct any issues, as well as continue to train and learn.
That constant coordination and communication sounds like your two key things. Let's talk a little bit, Rob, about the tools that you use for cross-selling, specifically the decision tree. Now, again, I think everyone's familiar with what a decision tree is, but what is the decision tree kind of cross-selling tool that you use? And again, something that everybody in this room has access to.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it's just a flow chart that we use to help position and uncover cross-selling opportunities with current clients, right? These typically take place during an annual review meeting and really just looking to uncover two things, right? One is certainly cross-selling opportunities, but the other is, making sure we're fulfilling our fiduciary obligation to our clients, putting their best interests first and making sure that they have a complete and bulletproof, holistic bucket plan, right? The first thing we look for is there an annuity rewrite opportunity, right? And we all just had a very unique opportunity here over the last year with changing rates to rewrite some annuities, get our clients into a better space, into a better rate on their annuities. We did a lot of this over the last 12 months or so, and we didn't really even wait for our annual review with these clients, right? We knew we had this unique opportunity with raising rate environment that we haven't seen in a long time. And so we got ahead of it and, looked through our list of annuities and reached out to our clients, and we had a pretty successful year or so rewriting annuities for our clients. But there's other opportunities there too that are part of that decision tree. Looking to see, is the clients insurable? We want to make sure that we're having that life insurance conversation with our clients and positioning them with the best possible life insurance product, right? Whether depending on their stage of life, is a term policy most appropriate? Is there a whole life policy more appropriate that they can actually have some cash value savings as well? Looking for their insurability and seeing if there's, like I said, a life insurance opportunity. Long-term care, right? Something that if that's important to folks, make sure let's look at some long-term care opportunities with them and see if that's something that maybe it's a standalone policy, maybe it's a rider to a life insurance policy. But just important to have these conversations with our clients, again, making sure that we're fulfilling our fiduciary obligation, but also along the way, uncovering some cross-selling opportunities as well.
And so that decision tree, as you said, it's a flow chart. Do you want to just describe it briefly, like what it really is?
Yeah, so it's a series of yes/no questions, right? Annuity, is there a new opportunity for annuity or perhaps a rewrite? If yes, obviously go down that path of getting the proper illustrations with the proper carrier. If not, ask yourself, is the client insurable, right? And maybe they're not even insurable. And if they're not, perhaps you can place maybe like a 1-year home health policy, funeral expense trust, or perhaps an estate planning trust. But if they are insurable, ask if long-term care is a concern and priority, right? And if there is, maybe is there perhaps a lump sum in the later bucket that can be repositioned? And if there is, perhaps you want to seek maybe asset-based long-term care, right? And maybe if there's not a lump sum in that later bucket, look to see maybe a premium paying life insurance with a long-term care rider, maybe a standalone long-term care policy. But back up, if the long-term care is not a concern or priority for the client, right? Look into, just because I mentioned a traditional life insurance policy, right? If cash value is more important, you can go that route. Maybe death benefit is more important. We can look for something that's more death benefit heavy rather than trying to build up the cash value. So kind of a series of questions that kind of starts with annuity rewrite, insurability, long-term care, life insurance, death benefit, versus cash value.
And at the end, what you've truly done is make sure there's no holes or gaps in that client's
exactly
fiduciary plan, which
Yep.
is, as you said, goes back to our fiduciary obligation.
Yep.
Chad, I know a common problem. I had it as an advisor. I know a lot of advisors have it, is we tend to think through things as like kill and move on, right? Like we get that client in, we get the assets over, and then we move on. What have you guys done differently maybe at JL Smith, or what have you done differently in your career where you're able to open up these other opportunities rather than just constantly look for the new client, so to speak?
Yeah, to answer, you just said it. I propose different strategies as opportunities. Opportunities come and go. So from that standpoint, when I have something that potentially will improve a client's plan, I present it in a way that it's an opportunity for them. I'm not forcing them into that. I'm giving them the data. I'm showing how it's going to improve their overall situation. And that's how I position it. And that's why I think we're successful in positioning a lot of different cross-selling strategies, is simply by presenting the facts, presenting it as an opportunity to the client, and then letting them make the educated decision. Because at the end of the day, this is their money, it's their decision. You want to be able to do your job, and if you're not reviewing and coming up with different options for your clients, somebody else will be. To do your job as a fiduciary, you should always be looking to be putting your client in a better position. I'll give you a couple of examples. Annuity replacements is one. Their rates are much higher. They have been over the past year and a half. So there's a lot of opportunity on older contracts with lower rates to potentially shift them into a better position where they can earn higher rates, or even a lifetime income position where now it's going to guarantee an income for the rest of their lives. Presenting those to your clients, and maybe you have some contracts that have bad rates that you did 3 years ago. Great. Those contracts have free withdrawals. You can always roll those into a managed account, and you can position them into safe strategies there too. Not only looking at, oh, I can replace that, but maybe a free withdrawal that is a direct rollover to an IRA is an option to reposition them to get them higher yield than what they're getting in their current contract. Always looking out for those opportunities, and when you find them, present them as an opportunity, allow them to think through, look at the data, and make a decision from there. And that's how I think we're successful in that.
How much do you do this kind of up front in the initial bucket plan process, right? We all know you're doing the concerns and priorities worksheet. Obviously, you can't satisfy maybe everything in that first, engagement, right? There's things that are going to have to be things that you might save for once they've become a client. But how much are you like creating those nuggets, dropping those seeds early on? Hey, this is something we're going to discuss later. This is something we're going to plan for later. Is that a common thing you're doing in that initial engagement with them?
100%, Caleb. Obviously, the goal is to onboard them as a client. So taking over on the managed money side and any recommendations from that standpoint, I'm always having, as we're going through the bucket planning process, as well as the onboarding process, I'm always having conversations around, is legacy important to you? Is long-term care important to you? You need to take those notes because those are future opportunities. They're not a client yet. So it might be overwhelming to present, hey, we're going to transfer over all your assets, and we're going to do this long-term care policy, and we're going to do this life insurance policy. You need to gather that information and utilize those tools down the road where it's not as overwhelming to a client, in my opinion. So making sure that you're keying those notes in, having them in your CRM, doing copy talks that explain the opportunities for now and down the road, and then making sure you're coming back, circling back around and addressing those concerns. Because if somebody says long-term care is a concern, we need to figure out how we're going to fund it. And they're not a client yet. We want to make sure we make them a client and we let them know, hey, we understand that this is a concern of yours. We're going to look into this once we get everything organized so that we are sure that your income is going to be in a good place and that your assets are going to last for the rest of your life from that standpoint. So that's how we kind of position that, is gathering that information and not overwhelming the client with all of these options at once, but layering them into their plan as we progress and we gather trust from the client.
Are you doing most of that in your kind of the annual review, the dedicated phase where you're meeting them on an ongoing basis? Is that where you're now layering some of that back in?
Yeah, 100%. I have a client and one of her major concerns is passing assets on for legacy. I'll give you an example. Her daughter had cancer recently. She's recovered. She got a degree, but right now her mental state isn't solid enough to hold a job that's paying a higher salary. So from that standpoint, making sure that there's money for the kids is very important. So looking at positioning life insurance, because I sat down, she literally started crying in the appointment. I said, I heard what you said, that legacy is important. I think we need to look at potentially repositioning some of the assets and using leverage via life insurance to solve one of these items so that you guys can maintain your lifestyle, but we can also fund a policy that we know if you and your husband are gone, we're going to be able to have a nice chunk of money go to the kids and secure that future for them. So those are generally done during annual reviews, obviously, throughout the process.
Rob, as JL Smith has grown, one of the challenges, I think, especially as you're an advisor early on, is you're a jack of all trades, right? You got to do everything. But obviously, JL Smith has been able to specialize. So when we talk about like cross-selling and really just how you keep all the advisors, again, working towards that same goal, do you find that you said, hey, we work as a team here. Are you bringing other people in that are kind of specialists in maybe life insurance or long-term care? How does that kind of coordination work?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question, Caleb. And Chad mentioned we certainly do work on EOS, right? I guess to answer your question directly, absolutely. We bring in outside resources into our weekly meetings, right? So the EOS process, every lane has a weekly meeting, right? So our advisory team, front stage, backstage advisors, has a weekly meeting. Our backstage, which is our pair planners and client service associates, they have a meeting. Our marketing team has a weekly meeting. Our business development team has a weekly meeting. Our director of first impression team has a weekly meeting. You get it, right? And then even from there, each lane lead has a quick kind of half-hour one-on-one with each person in their lane as well. So check in, go over a couple things in terms of some metrics, ideas, just a little bit more granularly, quick half hour. But what's important is consistent messaging across all of the teams as well, right? So even though we're having these weekly departmental meetings, it's important that the messaging is consistent across all of that, right? So a lot of that stems from our leadership team meeting that we have early in the week, and make sure any kind of cascading messages from that reach all of the other teams as well. And then we have a monthly entire organization team, right? So everybody hears the same message the same way. We're covering a lot of information that impacts the entire organization. We go over the financials, everything. So I think that constant communication, I think having a regular meeting pulse with the team certainly helps as well. And then, like you said, we bring in outside experts on those meetings, right? Certainly on our advisor team meeting, we bring in folks from C2P, we bring in folks from other vendors that we work with to come in and talk specifically to that team. Some of it might be just to answer some questions that come up. If we see the week before we had some questions, we'll just reach out and ask somebody if they've got some availability to that time and they pop in. We can ask some questions. If they've got some new products or services that they want to discuss with the team, they have an opportunity to do that as well. So yeah, I think it's just that consistent messaging across all of the various lanes and having a consistent meeting pulse as well.
And real quick, you mentioned it, Rob, so I'm going to do a quick plug for our support teams. We do regularly, for many offices, come in and come into a sales meeting, come into an operations meeting. If that's something you would like to set up from a cadence standpoint, you can reach out to me. You can reach out to any member of the sales support team. Stoyan leads that team. We'd be happy to be that resource for you on whatever cadence that you want. I know one of the big challenges, again, I'm going to use my experience, not to the level of J.F. Smith, of course, but just running a smaller offices, certainly it's a big challenge. How do you make sure you don't lose track of these opportunities, right? A lot of times you might uncover something in the initial planning process. It could be simple as something like, hey, this CD's renewing on this date. Like, how do you guys keep track of it? Who's holding people accountable to making sure these opportunities aren't slipping through the cracks later on?
Yeah, great question, Caleb. So that is really leveraging your CRM, right? Whichever CRM you use, obviously Redtail is widely used in the industry. We use Smart Office, and within Smart Office, they have this notion of a dashboard, right? Picture these as almost like your browser tabs, like on Google Chrome, and different tabs for different reports that we run. And that's how we keep track of everything, whether it's our sales pipeline tracker, our cash flow, our pending business, our life insurance, the pulse of the payments for them and when they come due. And RMDs really just have a dashboard for everything, right? And maybe they're your organizations at a point where maybe you're running Redtail and maybe you're keeping some supporting on a spreadsheet, which is fine, as long as it's kept somewhere. I'm anti-spreadsheet right now. If it's not in the CRM, it didn't happen. And I would encourage everybody to eventually get there. But yeah, just leverage the resources, particularly CRM, as much as possible to keep track of those things. So I'm happy to dive into what we do. Certainly won't have the time here, but if anyone schedules a mentor call, I'm on the mentor portal. I can show some of the dashboards that we have, some of the measurables that we use in our weekly meetings, really just to keep everybody on track.
Caleb, just to add to that, from an advisor standpoint, obviously the advisor is the front line. So if you're sitting in annual review and that there's an opportunity coming down the pike, after our meetings, we always do a copy talk. So our notes are dictated. All of those notes go to our back office. Our back office pulls those opportunities out and actually puts them in the CRM. So it's not like the advisor is having to remember what was going on. He dictated after that meeting, exactly what the opportunities are, when they are, and then that's going to our back office who's getting that in there so that we don't lose track of it.
And then someone obviously is managing that team and holding them accountable to making sure these things are being handled.
Yeah.
We're coming to the last several minutes. Chad, switching back to you, is there any words of wisdom, success stories, things that you would share that you found in your very successful career now at JL Smith, 10 years, as Rob said? Like, is there anything that you would say, here's some best practices that I would implement, especially, again, thinking maybe some of the offices might be just one advisor or just a couple advisors, that you would say, hey, these are things that if you do them, they're greatly going to increase not only your client retention, client loyalty, but also obviously bring more revenue and more success to your firm.
Yeah, absolutely. When I meet with clients, honestly, I go with kind of more of a John Del Greco approach. I really want to get to know the person. I want to have a connection there. And I think that is, in meeting one, the strongest thing that you can do is make a connection with that individual. Everybody has the same strategies, philosophies. They have access to different marketing organizations, all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, when you're meeting with a client, if you're not making that connection in that first appointment, chances are you're not going to end up with that client. So I really spend the extra time on that and will maybe delay my full discovery meeting to another meeting to make sure that I've spent the time to earn their trust, get to know them, and understand what their concerns are in that first meeting. And I really do think that first meeting is a critical point for them becoming a client. If you don't make that connection, then it is very hard to convert a prospect into a client.
100%. Again, we have a full life team here at C2P. In addition, we talked about life insurance and long-term care. I think those are two common cross-selling opportunities. Obviously, Robbie mentioned the annuity one. Fortunately, that one's going to probably leave us or at least reduce in volume a little bit as interest rates fall. But obviously, interest rates still are at near or high for going back 15 years. So certainly the opportunity is not gone, but I see a lot of cross-selling opportunities are going to be in the life insurance, long-term care. What about some other ancillary things like Medicare? Do you guys also run a Medicare program, and kind of how does that work?
Yeah, we absolutely do. As part of that, the holistic wealth management process that we have here, part of their plan. As many probably know, Gary Pelfrey wears several hats here. You've probably seen him in the context of doing fit calls, but he also helps head up our Medicare team, right? Right now, we're not doing a lot of lead generation activity around Medicare. We will once we have a bigger team to help support that. But so right now, we're really just servicing our clients, typically during the annual enrollment period, which is right around the corner, and making sure that they're still in the right plan. We've got a team that does the research on it, and again, making sure that if something has changed along the way, that they're in the right plan. So definitely leverage Medicare as an opportunity, especially right now, right? And if your firm is able to do it, do some marketing around it right now. It's going to be a hot button issue. We're all going to get flooded with the commercials on TV around it, but it's a great opportunity to get introduced to some new prospects and see if there's an opportunity for them to be a full holistic wealth management client as well. Yeah.
And obviously you guys also have the tax side, of course.
Tax side. Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
The tax preparation. So multiple avenues at JL Smith for them to lock them in as a client in all ways.
Absolutely.
Rob, last words for you, and any words of wisdom from your experience again in running this entire process at JL Smith, things that you've seen where maybe, hey, this wasn't as successful as we wanted to be, but we were able to find out how to make it work. Anything like that, any kind of tricks of the trade, so to speak?
Yeah, I'll borrow something from our good friend Matt Seitz, right? He always says, know your numbers. And that applies to everything, right? He obviously looks at it through the lens of marketing. But know your numbers. What is in your pipeline? What upcoming meetings do you have? How much business do you have pending? Where it's at? How old is it? So really leverage. If you're not using a CRM, start using a CRM today, right? Whether it's Redtail, it's pretty good out of the box. If you want to use Smart Office, you can talk to us. We can show you how to use it. But know your numbers. Keep track of everything. Your pipeline, like I said, your pending. set goals that are realistic, and just at the end of the day, know your numbers. So if you need help setting those numbers, I'm here to help be a resource for that as well.
Yeah, one of my favorite phrases is you can't improve it if you don't measure it. You don't track it. How are you going to improve it?
Exactly.
So, all right. I think everyone saw in the chat next week's topic. Very timely. We're going to be talking about something we don't always talk about, which are now bucket solutions. Obviously, with rates falling, that creates new or maybe different cash management opportunities. So I think Stoyan, you're going to be leading next week's conversation. So we'll be talking about, again, focused on the now bucket, especially in a lowering interest rate environment. Gentlemen, I just want to thank both of you for your time today. Obviously, thank all of you for attending. We will look forward to seeing you on next Thursday's Coffee Break with C2P. In the meantime, have a wonderful week and hope everyone has a great wrap up to September.
Thanks for tuning in. This podcast was brought to you by C2P, an organization whose purpose is to educate, train, grow, and support holistic financial advisors so families can achieve true prosperity. Never miss an episode by subscribing now to discover new resources and strategies. Visit c2penterprises.com to learn how we can help scale and secure your business. At the time of delivery and any subsequent publishing, information was deemed reliable, but is subject to change by the time of listening or viewing. The contents of this piece include options and projections of C2P, are subject to change, and are for informational purposes only. The information provided in this presentation is not intended to be individual investment, tax, or legal advice.